everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Tailored Expressions, and today I have some inspiration to share with you using the Snailed It Cardmaking Kit. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I will have a bonus card for you. Now let's take a look at the supplies I'm using. I have the Let's Celebrate Stamp and Die, Blooms and Shrooms Die, Snailed It Stamp, Stencil, and Clear combo. And then I'm also going to be using the Mini Slim Postage Stamp Stacklets. I'm also going to be using the Misti Clear Alignment Panel. For some adhesives, I have my Scotch tape, repositionable tape, I have my die pick, tweezers, large and small scissors, my Glassboard Buddy, and also the Jumbo Magnet, an anti-static powder tool, and white embossing powder, pick and place tool. I have some gold glitter drops and Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I will also be using some mini blending brushes, the regular blending brushes and detail brushes, and I have a clear block and my teal tape. I'll be using my large Misti to do my stamping. The main ink colors I'll be using is blueberry, gumball, snow cone, watermelon, toffee, sugar cube, and cinnamon. For additional inks to do some ink blending, I have mulled wine, cherry pop, Dijon, Peapod, and oat milk. And I'll also be using some Versafine Nocturne ink. For cardstocks, I have oat milk, Peapod, toffee, gumball, pineapple, cherry pop, and sugar cube. The first thing I'm going to do is take a 6x6 piece of Sugarcube cardstock. I'm actually using the piece that comes in the pack that's already pre-cut to 6x6. I put repositionable tape on the back to hold that down to my work surface, and then I lined up the first layer of the stencil, and I'm holding that down with some teal tape. For the body of the snail, I am going to be using Toffee Ink and a blending brush. Each layer of the stencil is labeled with a 1, 2, 3, and 4 to help you know what order to go in. So this is stencil 1. You want to make sure to get those little squares off on the right and left hand side. That is going to help you get the perfect alignment. For the second layer of the stencil, I am using watermelon ink, and I was very inspired in my color combination by some cross-stitching patterns that I just recently purchased. They are patriotic, but I really loved the shades of red and blues that they had used. For the third layer of the stencil, I am going to start with a Gumball Ink. And this is kind of where I did a little bit of experimenting. When I started ink blending Gumball, it wasn't giving me quite the color that I thought it was going to be. So I am going to layer my colors on top of one another. So I do have the Gumball down first. Then I'm going to come in with snow cone using the same blending brush. And I am just going to glaze over the top of that to help give me the shade of blue that I was looking for. Sometimes it's really fun to experiment and layer your colors up together to create new shades, especially if you have a certain project in mind. Keep in mind that that layer also did the stem and leaves of the flowers. So if you want that to be a different color, you could come in with a detail blending brush to apply maybe a green ink if you wanted that instead. The last layer is going to be blueberry ink, but now on the last layer, it does also have the centers for the flowers, which layered up over the top of red. So I wiped my stencil off with a rag, and I'm going to come in with cinnamon ink and a detail blending brush to go over the center of the flowers. Now in the kit, you do have a background stamp or individual stamp to do the details on the snail shells. I wanted to have an heat embossed look. I wanted to do white heat embossing, but I really struggled to see white heat embossing on white cardstock. So I did all of my ink blending first, and then you want to make sure your cardstock and your ink is completely dry. You can do that with a heat tool, or you can run that through your mini mink machine without any foil or anything, just in a carrier sheet, and that also helps dry the ink on your cardstock. I'm going to use the background stamp, so I placed this in my Misti, picked it up with the door, and then I am using the Misti Clear Alignment Panel. I place that down in the bottom of my Misti, and I'm going to ink up my stamp set using Versafine ink. I needed something that was going to stay on there so that I could see the pattern and where to align things up. So stamp that down. Now we transferred that design onto the clear alignment panel. I'm going to clean off my background stamp with a wet chamois. And then I'm going to take my clean sweep tool and go over that to completely dry the background. Then I'm going to take my stencil background and I'm going to put some repositionable tape on the back of it in case my other one wasn't quite as tacky anymore. And what we're going to do is pick up our alignment grid that I just stamped on, and I'm going to line up those squares on the left and right hand side. I'm going to line them up from the panel to my background. Then I'm going to carefully place this back down in my MISTI, making sure that that clear panel is tucked in the bottom corner where I started, and then gently push down. Then I can remove that panel. I'll clean it off later. I'm going to press down to make sure that that cardstock is secure on the bottom of my MISTI. And to just reassure myself, I added some Scotch tape to the top. Then I'm going to prep that with an anti-static powder tool. I did apply a heavy amount of powder because I really want to make sure I'm not getting embossing powder where I don't want it. And one of my favorite ways to do white heat embossing is by using white pigment ink. So this is the Sugarcube ink that I inked up the background stamp with. I'm going to stamp this down. I think I actually stamp it twice just to make sure I'm getting a really good impression. I'm not pressing too hard. And then once I feel that I have enough pigment ink down, because pigment ink does stay wet a little longer than just using a regular ink. And by using the white pigment ink, it kind of helps maybe fill in the gaps, and I feel like I just get a better result. So I'm sprinkling on the white embossing powder, tapping any of that excess off, and then you want to be really mindful of this. So if your panel is not completely dry, your embossing powder is going to stick to that wet ink. So I like to come in with a paintbrush and just brush away any excess powder, and then I can melt all that white embossing powder with my heat tool. So that was just a little trick that I came up with when I have white heat embossing that I want to do. And I just sometimes really struggle to see it on white cardstock. Give those clear alignment panels a try. Now I'm going to use a small block and the Versafine Nocturne ink to stamp on the little smiley faces on all of my snails. Off screen, I did a bunch of die cutting with the Blooms and Shrooms die set. So I did, I believe it was, this is watermelon cardstock, Gumball cardstock, Peapod for the leaves, and then oat milk for the mushrooms. And I'm going to add some shading to everything. So for the mushroom, the sides of it, I used oat milk ink. For the leaves, I am using Peapod ink and my mini blending brushes. For the mushroom tops that are in Gumball, I'm going to use Gumball Ink. I'm going to go around the outer edge of each of the mushrooms and also the flowers, but then I'm going to come in just slightly with the snow cone so that it matches my background. And I'll do something similar to this for the red, which is the watermelon cardstock. For the flowers and the mushroom tops, I started with Cherry Pop Ink to give it that shading, but then also coming in with mulled wine to really add the contrast. The center of the flowers I die cut from pineapple ink, and I'm going to go around the outer edges of those with Dijon. Next, I can do the assembly, and I'm going to use the Nouveau Deluxe adhesive and my reverse tweezers to pop on the top of the mushrooms. I'll also add the flowers to some of the stems and then the center to the flowers. And I did way more than I needed, but since I had all of the cardstock out, I just went ahead and did a bunch of die cutting and ink blending. And I love using the jumbo magnet to hold everything down while it's kind of setting. So while I don't use all of these on my card project, I do have a bunch of them ready to go for the next time I want to create. Now back to my stenciled background, I'm going to use the coordinating die and I'm lining that up over the images and I'm going to hold that down in multiple places using teal tape and run that through my die cut machine. And it is going to die cut out all of the snails, the flowers, and also the small mushrooms. Now I'm planning out the design for my card project. So for this, I am using the mini slim postage stamp stacklets. I die cut it out using Sugarcube cardstock, toffee, and cherry pop. I'm going to take some foam strips and place them on the back of the toffee cardstock and then align that onto the cherry pop. Off screen, I will add these to some card bases, but for now, I like to just work with the colored cardstock that I have. Now, for the postage pieces that go on the front, I started with the bigger one and I'm trying to center that. I'm just using some Scotch tape and I'm not pressing down very hard because I want to be able to move these and adjust these and center them as best as I can. Once I feel that I have them pretty well centered and spaced nicely, I can press down so that adhesive sticks to the cardstock. And then I can start decorating. So I have the mushroom that I die cut and ink blended on one end that is attached with just Scotch tape. The smaller flower is from the stenciled background that I popped up with a small foam square. I added another die cut flower off on the right. I wanted to balance out the light blues, so that's why I have one on each side. I have my snail in the center and I switched up the idea for the sentiment. So I went ahead and die cut out three more using just Sugarcube cardstock. I added liquid glue to the top and then I could just go through kind of like a little train and just pick them all up. And that is a really quick and easy way to stack your sentiments. So I'm placing that towards the bottom under my snail, and then I'll put that jumbo magnet over the top to let that really adhere down. And now I have one little gem that I wanted to add to the center of my flower. I felt like I just needed a little bit of sparkle. So I am bringing out my gold glitter drops that I placed in the Glassboard Buddy. I used my pick and place tool and the deluxe liquid adhesive, and I just popped that gem right in the center, and then I can pour my gold glitter drops back into the jar. So that will finish off this card project other than adding it to the card base, but I do have a bonus card that I wanted to share with you. When I seen some of these sentiments, I immediately thought of this Happy Mail die set that creates that mailbox. The products that I used to create that card is the Happy Mail die set, A2 postage stamp stacklets, Build a Scene Rolling Hills, and the A2 layers stacklet, and then a background stamp tweed. You can find this kit now available over at Tailored Expressions. I hope you enjoyed today's inspiration. Thank you so much for joining me.